The galaxy was quiet, too quiet, like the calm before something terrible. Far beyond the solar rim, hundreds of alien fleets drifted in silence, their massive warships glowing like dark suns. They were not explorers, they were executioners, sent by the Galactic Council to destroy humanity once and for all. The Council had declared Earth a dangerous species, a threat to the order of the stars. They called humans unpredictable, violent, emotional, and impossible to control. To them, humans were animals wearing armor, creatures who should have never reached space. But they had made one mistake. They believed that silence meant weakness. Inside Human Command, deep under the surface of Mars, every screen glowed red. Generals, scientists, and commanders stood around a circular table, eyes fixed on incoming data. Each report said the same thing: enemy fleets advancing from 3 directions. They were coming fast, confident, laughing in their encrypted channels about how easy this war would be. Some even called it the cleansing, a campaign to erase the human race in 1 week. But no one in the human room spoke. The silence there was not fear, it was focus. It was the kind of silence before a predator strikes. Commander Hale stood at the center, hands behind his back, his face calm, but eyes burning like fire. Beside him, Admiral Rana whispered, "They think we are unprepared." Hale nodded slowly. "Let them think," he said, voice low and cold. A single soldier broke the silence. "Sir, should we transmit a response to the alien declaration?" The commander turned his head slightly. "Yes," he said, "but just one line." Across the galaxy, the alien fleet received a message. It was short, only 8 words. "You wanted war. Now you'll see how humans fight." The alien admirals laughed. They played the recording across their bridge, mocking the strange emotion in the human voice. They thought it was pride. They thought it was madness. But none of them recognized what it really was. It was patience mixed with fury. It was the calm rage of a species that had survived everything from ice ages to atomic fire. On Earth, every colony went silent when the message was broadcast. Children stopped in the streets. Workers paused their tools. Pilots froze in the middle of training. Everyone heard the same words, and every human felt the same heartbeat. They were not soldiers, but they all understood. This was not about power or revenge. This was about survival. About proving to the stars that humanity was not something to be erased. In the underground command center, lights dimmed, and maps of the solar system expanded into holograms. Red dots marked enemy fleets, hundreds of them. Blue dots, human ships, far fewer, weaker, smaller. But the humans did not panic, they started to plan. Engineers began recalculating orbital weapon trajectories. Pilots whispered to each other, voices steady. "Remember Earth," one said quietly, and everyone repeated the phrase like a prayer. Outside Mars, the first alien probes entered human space. They saw empty stations, quiet planets, no resistance. The alien commander laughed and said, "They have already surrendered." He did not know that under the dark dust of Phobos, a human fleet was waiting. Engines silent, shields cold, ready to strike the moment the signal came. Back on Mars, Commander Hale watched the stars through a viewing screen. He remembered the old stories from Earth, of soldiers who stood against impossible odds. He thought of ancient wars, where humanity had faced extinction before. He whispered to himself, "We always fight harder when we are pushed." Admiral Rana looked at him and said softly, "What if they destroy us?" Hale smiled. "Then we make sure they never forget us." Across the communication network, one last order was sent. Every captain, every soldier, every pilot received the same message from Human Command. "Hold your ground. No retreat. No mercy. The storm begins now." In that moment, every heartbeat in human space synchronized. Fear turned into steel. Silence turned into determination. The humans were ready. And in the black void between stars, the alien ships began to move forward. Their engines ignited like suns, waves of light cutting through darkness. But something strange happened. Their sensors began to fail. Unknown energy signatures appeared all around them. Invisible ships, hidden satellites, and ghost signals filled the void. The alien commander shouted in confusion, "Where are they?" And then, from behind the moons, from within asteroid shadows, from nowhere and everywhere, humanity answered, not with words, but with fire. The silence was finally broken, and the storm had begun. Across the cold, red deserts of Mars, the air was thick with motion and purpose. Humanity was no longer silent. It was preparing. Every workshop, every bunker, every orbiting ship hummed with energy. The war that the galaxy had started was now becoming something far greater than they had imagined. Engineers worked under the glowing domes of Olympus Base, welding armor plates and reprogramming old defense drones. Once these machines were used for mining, now they were being turned into weapons. Children delivered food to soldiers. Artists painted hope on walls, and scientists whispered over blue holograms. Humanity was transforming, quietly, efficiently, and with absolute focus. Commander Hale stood before a massive window overlooking the shipyards of Mars. Rows of unfinished battle cruisers floated in dry dock, their hulls shining like red fire under artificial suns. Beside him, Admiral Rana studied the tactical map. 5 enemy fleets are now within range, she said softly. If they attack together, we will be outnumbered 6-1. Hale nodded slowly. Then we make them fight us one by one. He turned to the engineers and said, "Activate Project Nemesis." Deep below the Martian surface, hidden in a forgotten hangar, engines roared to life. From the shadows rose a ship unlike any other, black as space itself. It was the first human stealth dreadnought, powered by dark fusion cores and designed for silent annihilation. The galaxy thought humans were centuries away from such technology, but they had been wrong. Humans didn't brag about their power. They built it quietly, in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike. Meanwhile, across the moons of Jupiter, human outposts began transmitting coded messages, words that no alien translator could understand. Old Earth languages, mixed with military slang and emotional tone patterns. They were not just signals, they were promises. Every message carried the same closing line. Hold the line, for Earth, for everyone. On the colony of Titan, civilians volunteered to join the fleet. Old miners became gunners, teachers became medics, and farmers became pilots. No one questioned orders, no one hesitated. They all remembered the message from Human Command. You wanted war, now you'll see how humans fight. Those words had become more than a warning. They were now a vow written into every human heart. The aliens continued their advance, unaware that every step forward pulled them into a trap. Human scouts used asteroids as cover, moving silently between shadows. AI satellites mapped alien communication lines and began feeding them false data. Entire enemy squadrons started chasing phantom fleets that didn't exist. Frustration began to spread among the invaders. They had expected a quick victory, but now they were fighting ghosts. Back on Mars, Commander Hale gathered his officers for the final briefing. He pointed at the holographic star map, red lines blinking across the display. "These are their supply routes," he said. "We cut them here, here, and here." Rana frowned. "That's risky." Hale smiled faintly. "So is underestimating humans." In the dark corridors of the fleet, soldiers checked their weapons. They spoke softly, some praying, some remembering families left behind on Earth. The silence before battle felt heavy, sacred, unbreakable. Every heartbeat in the fleet pulsed with the same rhythm, the rhythm of defiance. Then, the coded message came through from command. Operation Dawn begins at 0300 hours. Every pilot, every Marine, every technician stood at attention. Engines flared, weapons charged, the stars reflected on steel hulls. This was the moment the galaxy would remember forever. Humanity was not an army. It was a storm about to break. In the distance, the alien fleets adjusted formation, confident and proud. They still believed this was their victory. They did not know that every asteroid around them now held a weapon. They did not know that the humans had already surrounded them. The galaxy had chosen war, and humanity had accepted the challenge. As the first human ships vanished into the darkness, a single transmission was sent across the stars, carried on encrypted frequencies no alien could trace. "We fight not for revenge, but for survival." And somewhere deep in space, the commander of the alien armada felt something unfamiliar. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. Because the storm was coming, and its name was humanity. The stars were calm, almost peaceful, as the alien armada approached the edge of human territory. Their ships stretched across the void like a moving wall of light, engines glowing with arrogant confidence. They believed humanity was cornered, weak, unprepared. But they didn't know the truth. They were already walking into a trap. On the dark side of Jupiter, invisible to all sensors, the human fleet waited. Ships floated in total silence, their black hulls absorbing starlight. Inside each vessel, soldiers whispered final prayers, their faces pale but eyes steady. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Nemesis, staring at the tactical display. "Wait for my mark," he said quietly, voice calm, like a teacher before a lesson. Across the galaxy, the alien commander smirked. His fleet had just received reports that the human colonies had gone silent. He mistook it for surrender. He broadcast a message on open channels. "Humans, your resistance is meaningless. Bow before the Galactic Council and you will be spared." But his message reached no one. Instead, his words echoed in the void, unanswered, until a second transmission broke through, cold and sharp. "Message received." And then the stars exploded. From behind Jupiter's shadow, hundreds of human ships decloaked. Stealth bombers, interceptors, railgun destroyers, all moving as one. The first volley came without warning. A storm of kinetic rounds and plasma torpedoes ripped through alien formations. Massive cruisers split apart like paper, glowing fragments spinning into the dark. Panic spread across the alien network, their admiral shouting for control. But it was too late. Human pilots screamed through the void, voices filled with fury and focus. Target locked, fire again. Missiles traced silver lines across the emptiness. Every explosion painted the stars in fire. The aliens tried to counterattack, but their targeting systems failed. Human AIs had already hacked their sensors, showing phantom fleets and false readings. Their ships fired blindly, hitting nothing but darkness. Commander Hale watched the chaos unfold, his expression unreadable. Rana stepped closer, whispering, "They didn't even see us coming." Hale replied softly, "They never do." He gave one more order, "Deploy the swarm." From the Nemesis, thousands of small drones shot into space. Each one carried a small charge, silent and invisible. They moved like shadows, attaching themselves to alien ships. Seconds later, the void lit up again as explosions rippled across the fleet. Entire battleships vanished in flashes of light, leaving only drifting wreckage behind. The aliens screamed across open frequencies, their arrogance gone, replaced by fear. One alien admiral shouted, "They were supposed to be primitive." His voice cracked as another explosion cut through his bridge. The human ships advanced slowly, methodically. They did not chase fleeing enemies. They did not taunt. They fought like machines, efficient, unstoppable, silent. Far away, on the moon's military command, Earth watched the battle feed in real time. Crowds gathered in control rooms, soldiers clenched fists, children cheered. For the first time, humanity was winning, not by luck, but by will. An old general whispered, "We are no longer defending, we are teaching." And across the stars, the galaxy learned what that meant. As the smoke cleared, only fragments of the alien fleet remained. Commander Hale stood still, looking at the endless field of fire and wreckage. He spoke quietly. This was their lesson, not their end. Rana looked at him, confused. "Lesson?" He turned to her, eyes cold as steel. "They thought we were weak. Now they will regroup, and when they come again, we will be ready." He turned to his crew. "Send recovery teams, gather survivors." A lieutenant frowned. "Sir, alien survivors?" "Yes," Hale replied. "Let them return. Let them tell their people what they saw. Because fear travels faster than light." And the message of humanity's strength was already spreading through every frequency in the galaxy. In the alien capital, transmission logs began to pour in. Distorted voices, screams, flashes of human ships appearing out of nowhere. One broken recording looped across the council chambers. "They came from the shadows. We couldn't see them. We couldn't stop them." Silence filled the alien senate. No one spoke. No one laughed. For the first time, the galaxy realized. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the storm. The galaxy was burning with confusion. Every alien news network repeated the same shocking words. The humans fought back. Entire empires stopped their trade routes. their rulers holding secret meetings in panic. For the first time in centuries, the Great Galactic Council was silent. The alien fleet that had once mocked Earth was now nothing but floating wreckage. Out of 500 warships, barely a few dozen limped away, their crews broken and terrified. But humanity did not celebrate, not yet. Commander Hale stood in the command room aboard the dreadnought Nemesis, watching the data feed scroll across the screen. Rana approached quietly. The survivors are fleeing toward the Orion Gate. Hale nodded slowly. Good, he said. Let them go. Rana frowned. You want them to warn the others? He replied softly. Exactly. Fear will move faster than our ships. While alien governments try to understand what had happened, humanity moved again. Across Mars, Luna, and Titan, factories thundered day and night. New ships were born every hour, built from recycled wreckage and hidden reserves. Artificial intelligence worked side by side with human engineers. They were no longer defending Earth. They were preparing to strike. The Alien Alliance gathered its generals in the council chamber. Holograms flickered as different species argued, shouting over one another. The humans must be destroyed before they grow stronger, one demanded. Another shouted, they already are stronger. Panic spread like wildfire through the council. No one noticed the small drone hidden in the ceiling, quietly recording everything. Within hours, that recording reached human command, and humanity knew every detail of the enemy's next move. On Mars, Hale stood before the holographic map of the Milky Way. Dozens of red markers glowed. Enemy strongholds, fuel stations, shipyards. He raised his hand. We hit them here, and here, all at once. The room fell silent. Admiral Rana looked uncertain. 3 simultaneous strikes. That's too risky. Hale turned to her, his voice calm. War is never safe, but it's the only language they understand. The operation began under the name Iron Dawn. Human fleets split into 3 groups, each led by veteran captains. Their engines burned blue as they vanished into deep space. Civilians across Earth watched the skies, whispering prayers into the wind. Come back to us, they said, and bring peace with you. Far across the void, the first human fleet arrived at the alien fuel station near Elter Prime. It was heavily guarded, with dozens of cruisers orbiting the massive gas giant. But the humans didn't attack from the front. They used the planet's gravity and radiation belts to mask their movement. By the time the aliens noticed the energy spikes, it was already too late. Human railguns opened fire, tearing through the orbital defenses. Explosions rippled across the station, one after another. The alien commanders screamed orders, but the humans were already gone. They struck like lightning, vanished like shadows. The second fleet hit a shipyard near Vega. Hundreds of incomplete warships burned before they could even launch. Human marines boarded the remaining stations, rescuing prisoners and destroying enemy blueprints. They left behind a single message carved into the metal walls. We don't conquer, we survive. The third fleet, led by Hale himself, attacked the communication relay at the edge of the galaxy. Once it was destroyed, the alien forces were blind and deaf. No orders, no reinforcements, only silence and fear. As the dust settled, humanity's 3 strikes had crippled the enemy. The Galactic Council sent desperate peace offers, promising to end hostilities. But humanity did not reply, not yet. Hale stood before his crew, eyes dark and steady. They started this war, we will finish it, but not with destruction, with understanding. Rana looked at him, surprised. Understanding. He nodded. They need to see that we didn't fight for dominance. We fought because they forced us. Across the stars, alien civilians began questioning their leaders. Propaganda collapsed. Truth spread. Millions began to see humanity not as monsters, but as a mirror of their own fear. The galaxy that once united to destroy Earth was now dividing from within. And as the alien empires tore themselves apart, humanity rose higher. Every world, every colony, every human heart beat as one. They had shown the galaxy what happens when peace is broken. But this was only the beginning. Because while the galaxy was still counting its losses, Human Command was already planning the next phase, a mission that would end the war forever. And in the silence of the command bridge, Commander Hale whispered to himself, they wanted war, but they'll remember how humans end it. The galaxy that once ruled through fear was now trembling in silence. Worlds that had once mocked humanity were now burning, their skies filled with wreckage and regret. The great alien empire, proud and ancient, had begun to break apart from within. And humanity, once seen as weak, now stood tall in the center of it all. Commander Hale stood aboard the dreadnought Nemesis, watching endless streams of data on the holoscreen. Reports came from every corner of the galaxy: alien rebellions, failed supply chains, vanished fleets. The empire that had declared itself eternal was collapsing faster than anyone believed possible. Rana walked beside him, her voice low. "They're tearing each other apart." Hale nodded slowly. "That's what fear does." But humanity did not celebrate, not yet. They had learned through blood and loss that war never truly ends. It only changes shape. Earth's colonies were rebuilding, factories running day and night. Every planet sent resources to one another without question. For the first time in human history, there were no borders, no nations, only one flag, one cause, one species. Across the alien empire, cracks deepened. Some species wanted peace, others wanted revenge. Civil wars erupted in systems once thought untouchable. The council that had ordered the war vanished in chaos, their leaders hiding in unknown sectors. And through the void came whispers. The humans are not just fighting, they're surviving better than us. In the heart of Mars Command, scientists worked on new defensive technology: energy shields, faster drives, and planetary cloaks. Hale's new strategy was simple. Never again would Earth be caught unprepared. Rana watched the progress with pride and sorrow. "So much power," she said softly, "but at what cost?" Hale's eyes darkened. "The cost was freedom, and we've paid it in full." Meanwhile, alien refugees began to arrive on human borders. They came in broken ships, hungry, tired, begging for mercy. And humanity did something no one expected. They helped them. Food, shelter, and medicine were sent to alien survivors. The same species that had tried to destroy Earth now found safety under human protection. It was not a sign of weakness, it was a sign of control. In one refugee camp on Titan, an alien child looked up at a human medic. "Why do you help us?" she asked, voice trembling. The medic smiled. "Because we remember what it's like to be hunted." That single act spread across the stars faster than any broadcast. The message was clear. Humans were not conquerors. They were survivors who refused to become monsters. The alien generals who once led the invasion were now prisoners. Commander Hale visited them one by one. He asked no questions, gave no speeches. He simply looked them in the eye and said, "You could have asked for peace." Some looked away in shame, others wept. The arrogance of empires had finally met the humility of humanity. Yet Hale knew it wasn't over. Far in the galaxy's edge, hidden warlords were gathering what remained of their fleets. They wanted revenge, not peace. Rana warned him, "They will attack again." Hale replied quietly, "Then we'll remind them again." Across every human colony, people were rebuilding homes, planting crops, teaching children about the war. But they didn't speak of victory, they spoke of survival. Every classroom displayed the same words written on black banners. "We do not fight for domination, we fight to exist." It became the creed of humanity, a promise to never start a war, but to always finish it if forced. In the alien ruins, messages appeared on old walls, painted by survivors in trembling hands. "Do not provoke Earth. Do not test the quiet ones." Humanity had become a legend, a story whispered by those who had seen their wrath. A story that began with a single message. "You wanted war. Now you'll see how humans fight." On the bridge of Nemesis, Hale watched the distant stars. Rana stood beside him. "Do you think they'll ever understand us?" He smiled faintly. "They don't need to understand," he said. "They just need to remember." And as the ship turned slowly toward the next unknown frontier, the humans of Earth carried their strength, their mercy, and their warning with them. The empire was broken, but humanity had only just begun its rise. For weeks, the galaxy had lived in silence. No one dared to speak the word war. The great alien empires were shattered, their fleets drifting like bones in endless space. Trade routes were abandoned, communication networks filled with static. Everyone waited for the next move, the next command, the next voice to rise from the void. And that voice belonged to humanity. Inside the command chamber of the dreadnought Nemesis, Commander Hale stood before a glowing console. Across the room, Admiral Rana watched him quietly. "The galaxy is listening," she whispered. "Are you sure you want to say it?" Hale looked at her with calm eyes. "It's time they understand who we are." All across human space, ships powered down their weapons. Communication dishes turned toward the stars. Every colony, every station, every fleet synchronized to one signal. For the first time, humanity would speak not just to one world, but to all of them. The transmission began with silence, pure and endless. And then, Hale's voice filled the galaxy, steady, deep, and unshakable. "This is human command, to all who can hear. You called us fragile, you called us primitive, you called us dangerous. You tried to erase us, but we are still here. We never wanted this war, but you forced us to learn it. And we learned faster than you imagined." In alien worlds, leaders froze as the message reached their halls. Workers dropped tools, children stared at the sky. The human voice carried through every receiver, every channel, every planet. "We fought not to conquer, but to survive," Hale continued. "We do not seek your worlds, your riches, or your surrender. We only seek peace, but if peace is denied, then understand this. Humanity will not fall quietly." The voice echoed like thunder through the galaxies. It wasn't loud, but it carried a weight no empire could match. Even static couldn't erase the tone. It was calm, honest, terrifying in its truth. "We are the children of storms," Hale said. "We come from a world that burns and freezes in the same breath. We build, we break, and we rebuild again. You cannot destroy what has already survived extinction." In the alien capital, the last remaining council members sat in silence. No one dared interrupt the broadcast. They had mocked humanity's emotions once. Now they realized those emotions were the very thing that made humans unstoppable. The message continued. "We offer you one final chance," Hale said. "Choose peace or choose silence. Because if you come for us again, there will be no second warnings." And then, as the transmission reached its final moments, Hale's tone softened. "We remember our fallen," he said, "human and alien alike. We do not hate you, but we will never forget. Let the stars remember this day, not for the war we fought, but for the lesson it taught. That humanity stands together, unbroken, forever." The message ended. The stars went quiet again. For several heartbeats, there was only static. Then, slowly, transmissions began to appear. Alien fleets pulling back, treaties being written, surrender requests being sent. But humanity replied to none of them. Not yet. On the bridge of Nemesis, Rana turned toward Hale. "They will remember this forever," she said. Hale nodded slowly. "Good," he replied. "Let them remember the sound of our voice." He looked at the stars and whispered, "Peace is not given, it is earned." And far across the galaxy, alien historians began recording the words that would define a new era. They called it the message that shook the stars. Because from that day forward, every world, every empire, every species knew one truth. You could challenge humanity's strength, but never their spirit. Years passed, and the stars grew quiet again. The war that once shook the galaxy had ended, but its echoes remained in every world. The name humanity became something more than a word. It became a memory, a warning, and a promise. No one dared to forget what they had seen. The fire, the mercy, and the unbreakable spirit of the species that refused to die. In the ruins of the old alien empire, monuments rose. Not for their fallen, but for the humans who had shown them the meaning of endurance. Children across alien worlds learned about Earth not as a planet, but as a legend. Teachers whispered. They came from a blue world, where storms and fire built hearts of iron. And every student listened in silence. Because even in peace, the name of humanity carried weight. On Mars, Commander Hale walked through the rebuilt city of New Dawn. Skyscrapers gleamed under twin suns, their glass reflecting the stars like living fire. He was older now, his hair silver, his eyes tired but proud. The war was over, but its lessons still lived in every human heart. Beside him, Admiral Rana smiled faintly. "You changed the galaxy, you know." Hale chuckled softly. "No," he said. "The galaxy changed itself, when it finally listened. Every year, humanity gathered to remember the ones who never returned. A single beam of light was projected from Earth into space, cutting through darkness like a promise. They called it the Beacon of Dawn. It was visible even from alien worlds, a silent reminder of the message that had once shaken the stars. We do not start wars, but we end them. Far beyond the human colonies, alien ships began to arrive, not as invaders, but as guests. They came to trade, to learn, to understand. The same species that once fired upon Earth now stood in human academies, studying human art, human science, human history. And when asked why, they all gave the same answer. Because they became what we could not. The Galactic Council was rebuilt, not as an empire, but as a union. And at its heart, a human seat remained empty. By tradition, no one sat there. It was not a throne of power, but a symbol of restraint. A reminder that humanity had fought, forgiven, and then stepped back when they could have ruled. In time, stories turned to myths. Old soldiers became names carved in steel, and the phrase human command became a legend told in 1,000 alien tongues. Some called them saviors, others called them ghosts. But to everyone, they were the ones who showed that courage could outshine fear. On the anniversary of the final battle, a new transmission was sent from Earth. Simple, peaceful, carried through the same frequencies that once echoed with war. To all who still listen, we wish you peace. Remember, strength is not in destruction, but in unity. Humanity stands with you. Across the galaxy, millions looked up at the night sky. They saw the light from Earth's beacon, still burning bright after all these years. And for a moment, every species, every world, every being felt something they couldn't describe. It was hope, pure and quiet, flowing through the stars. Back in his cabin, Commander Hale looked out at the endless sea of stars. Rana's voice echoed through the comms. The universe feels different now. Hale smiled faintly. It's quieter, he said, but it's listening. He turned off the lights, his reflection fading against the glass. And as the ship drifted into the darkness, his last words were carried through the void. We were never the strongest, never the oldest, but we were the ones who never gave up. The galaxy remembered those words. And even centuries later, travelers whispered a single phrase when they looked toward the Milky Way. That's where the humans lived. And though ages passed, those stars burned out and were born again. The legend of humanity remained. Unbroken, eternal, shining forever in the heart of the universe.